That's his name.
Okay, can I just inform those in the public gallery that they can use mobile devices through a Wi-Fi connection, and all devices should be muted. Password details are available on the gallery rules for anyone wanting to connect to the Assembly's Wi-Fi network. 3G and 4G should not be used, and no recording or photographs are to be taken. Okay, we'll commence with the agenda. Item number 1, apologies. Any apologies?
No apologies received.
No apologies, thank you. Item 2, declaration of members' interests. Just remind members that they are obliged to declare any relevant finance or other interests before taking part in relevant committee proceedings. Does any member have any interest to declare? No. Thank you. Okay. Item number 3 on the agenda, the draft minutes from the 13th of November 2024. So just refer members to the draft minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of November 2024, which are on page 6 of the meeting pack. Are we content with the draft minutes? Yep. Content? Thank you. Okay.
Just get you to sign.
Sign the minutes accordingly.
Yeah, stuck together. There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lovely.
Thank you. Okay. Item 4 on the agenda, any matters arising from the minutes? No? Thank you. Okay, then item 5 is the RAISE briefing, relevant budget scrutiny processes in neighbouring jurisdictions in relation to their corporate bodies. I can refer members to the Secretariat briefing paper at page 14 and the research paper at page 16 of the meeting packs. Good morning. Just welcome Rachel Keys, the Assembly Research Officer, and invite her to accordingly brief the committee. So, Rachel, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Chair. I'll go through each section of the paper briefly, and then hopefully that will leave plenty of time for questions. So section 1 of the paper summarises the committee's role and responsibilities in relation to the individual budgets and estimates of the Northern Ireland Audit Office, the Northern Ireland Public Services Ombudsman and the Northern Ireland Assembly Commission. As I'm sure you're all aware, essentially the committee is required to agree the estimates of the Northern Ireland Audit Office and the Northern Ireland Public Services Ombudsman and then lay them before the Assembly, and this requirement is set out in legislation. These processes are also outlined in protocols, and there are memorandums of understanding in place between the committee and the Audit Office, and also the committee and the Ombudsman. In addition to the above, the committee carries out a number of other roles, including scrutiny of the draft budgets of the Audit Office and the Public Services Ombudsman, and also the Northern Ireland Assembly Commission. And those processes are outlined in a series of protocols. Just to note, when we talk about budgets and estimates, the budget is a policy document which sets out spending plans, and then the estimates are used to seek the Assembly's authority for these spending plans. Section 2 of the paper then provides relevant context-setting information relating to the Northern Ireland Assembly Commission, including its budget-setting process. The Commission is the corporate body which has a statutory responsibility for providing the Northern Ireland Assembly or ensuring the Assembly is provided with property, staff and services required for the Assembly's purpose, and it's funded from the Northern Ireland Consolidated Fund. The Commission's budget covers salary payments for Commission staff, MLA salaries and expenses, and the administrative costs incurred in delivering the full range of services that are needed by the Assembly. The Audit Committee provides scrutiny to the Commission's draft budget and lays a report on its draft budget. And the approach taken by the committee is outlined in a published document entitled the Northern Ireland Assembly Commission Budget Setting Process, which is summarised in Table 1 of the paper. The estimates for the Northern Ireland departments and other bodies, including the Northern Ireland Assembly Commission, are published and laid in the Assembly by the Department of Finance in a single publication, and this publication also includes the copies of the estimates laid for the Audit Office and the Ombudsman. Section 3 of the paper then identifies counterparts of the Northern Ireland Assembly Commission, or parliamentary corporate bodies, within the United Kingdom at the national and devolved levels, and examines the current budgetary oversight arrangements, including any relevant legislation and related procedures. I'm going to go through each of these in turn. I would say that practices do vary quite a bit, however there are a few good examples which may be of interest to the committee. So firstly, turning to the United Kingdom or central government. In the UK context, similar to the practice in Northern Ireland, the estimates are used to seek the Parliament's authority for spending plans. In the UK, the House of Commons Commission is the parliamentary corporate body with broadly the same functions as the Northern Ireland Assembly Commission. However, the House of Commons Commission is not responsible for the costs and salaries and allowances paid to MPs. These costs are met by the Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority, or IPSA for short, which is also a corporate body. Two estimates cover the direct expenditure of the House of Commons. We have the administration estimate and also the members' estimate. And the House of Commons Finance Committee is responsible for preparing both estimates, and this is set out in standing orders and noted at subsection 3.1.2 of the paper. The administration estimate is laid before the House of Commons by the House of Commons Commission, and this is enshrined in legislation. The members' estimate, however, is included within the departmental estimates and laid by the government after being agreed by the Members' Estimate Committee. This committee has the same membership as the House of Commons Commission, and this is all set out in standing orders. The IPSA estimate is scrutinised and agreed by the Speaker's Committee for IPSA, and the agreed estimate is then laid by the Speaker, and this too is enshrined in legislation. Obviously, in order to scrutinise an estimate, you need to have some idea of the underlying spending plans or budgets. The spending plans of the House of Commons Commissions are set out in its medium-term financial plan, and this incorporates a medium-term investment plan. This is a rolling 3-year plan. It is approved by the Commission's Executive Board and then presented to the House of Commons Finance Committee for advice. Scrutiny of these spending plans is included in the report prepared by the Finance Committee. The spending plans of IPSA are outlined in IPSA's annual business plans. These two are presented to the Speaker's Committee for IPSA for advice, and scrutiny of the spending plans are included in their final report. In the UK, scrutiny of the Audit Office is the responsibility of a standalone committee, so the estimates of the National Audit Office are examined and laid before the House of Commons by the Public Accounts Commission, and this is set out in legislation. Turning to Wales. In Wales, the Senate Commission is the parliamentary corporate body with broadly the same functions as the Northern Ireland Assembly Commission, and similar to the Northern Ireland Assembly Commission, its budget does include member costs. The Senate's Finance Committee is responsible for considering and reporting on the budget of the Welsh Government and the Senate Commission, and also the estimates of the Auditor General for Wales and the Welsh Audit Office, and also the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales. The Senate's Finance Committee remit is set out in standing orders. This practice differs from what happens in Northern Ireland, as a standalone committee is not used to consider and report on the budgets or estimates of the corporate bodies. The Wales Audit Office and Auditor General for Wales must jointly lay their estimate before the Senate. This is set out in legislation. Under standing orders, the Finance Committee must scrutinise the estimate and lay a report before the Senate, which includes the estimate with any modifications which it considers appropriate, following consultation with both the Audit Office and the Auditor General. The Public Services Ombudsman for Wales must submit their estimate to the Senate's Finance Committee. This too is required through legislation, and the Finance Committee must then scrutinise the estimate and lay it before the Senate with any modifications, and this also is required under standing orders. The Senate Commission's budget scrutiny process is set out in the Senate standing orders, and the excerpt is included in the paper at subsection 3.2.2. You might note that the standing orders are quite detailed in Wales, and they include, for example, things like dates by which certain milestones must be achieved. Essentially, the Senate Commission must lay its draft budget for the next financial year before the Senate to allow scrutiny of its proposals by the Senate's Finance Committee. After the Finance Committee has completed its scrutiny, the Senate Commission publishes a final budget to be debated in plenary before a vote for approval by the Senate. An annual budget motion incorporates the final budget for the Senate Commission alongside the final budget for the Welsh Government and the estimates for the Audit Office, the Ombudsman and the Electoral Commission. And finally, in Scotland, the Scottish Parliamentary Corporate Body is the parliamentary corporate body with broadly the same functions as the Northern Ireland Assembly Commission. Just like in Northern Ireland, its budget includes members' costs, and in addition, however, its budget includes the Scottish Public Service Ombudsman. In Scotland, the Finance and Public Administration Committee has the lead role in scrutinising the Scottish Government's budget bill each year. The budget bill includes the Scottish Government's budget as well as the Scottish Parliamentary Corporate Body budget and Audit Scotland's budget. So again, just like in Wales, a standalone committee is not used to consider and report on the budgets or estimates of the Parliamentary Corporate Body, and the remit of the Finance and Public Administration Committee is set out in standing orders and noted at subsection 3.3.2 of the paper. The Finance and Public Administration Committee has a written agreement with the Scottish Parliamentary Corporate Body on the administrative arrangements relating to scrutiny of their draft budget. In short, accurate information about the spending plans of the corporate body is made available to the committee and the Scottish Government at an early stage. The corporate body provides a budget to the committee and to the Scottish Government, normally no later than the end of the first week of December. It also has agreed to keep both the committee and the Scottish Government informed of any substantive changes to the Scottish Parliament's budget. In order to assist the committee's understanding of the expenditure plans, members of the corporate body, the clerk and parliamentary staff provide information and give evidence to the committee when requested. And the committee considers and reports on the Scottish Parliamentary Corporate Body budget as part of its wider budget scrutiny. Its final expenditure proposals then appear within the annual budget bill, which is voted upon by the Scottish Parliament. And lastly, the Scottish Commission for Public Audit is responsible for scrutiny of the Audit Scotland's budget, and this is set out in legislation. The Scottish Commission for Public Audit has a written agreement with Audit Scotland on the agreed administrative arrangements relating to the scrutiny of the budget, and the Scottish Commission for Public Audit scrutinises the budget of Audit Scotland and produces a report. The report is then considered by Parliament as part of its wider budget scrutiny. So that's a very brief rundown of the paper, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thanks very much. That's very comprehensive, Rachel. I have a few questions and then I'll open it to the floor. First, a note from your briefing that in other places the equivalent of our Finance Committee is involved in the scrutiny process for the relevant corporate body. In your view, should the Finance Committee here have a bigger role in assisting this committee in its scrutiny role?
I think if you look back to the reason why it was became the remit of the Audit Committee, it was because of its independence, and that's sort of an avenue that the Northern Ireland Assembly has chosen, and it's a similar practice at the UK level. So it's, you know, the UK and Northern Ireland are doing similar things there, and then obviously Wales and Scotland are just using the Finance Committee. I would say that even when the Finance Committee is involved, they're still treating the budget as sort of a separate exercise and scrutinising it individually.
Okay, well, as part of the committee review into this area, can you provide any advice on stakeholders outside of Northern Ireland that it could contact for further information?
You could certainly contact the other legislators for advice on the processes that they use and how they're finding that. So, for example, in Wales, it's very well documented. You know, each stage of the process, the standing orders are very, very detailed, whereas the other jurisdictions have gone for like written agreements that can be amended. So it might be an idea to talk to those other legislators on how it works in practice.
Okay. My final question is Northern Ireland unique at the moment in only having single-year budgets in relation to parliamentary corporate bodies?
The UK one has a 3-year rolling budget, and then the Welsh and Scottish budgets are they're also devolved nations, so they're sort of under the same issues that we're having. The UK government announces its budget, and then we have to work our budget from that. So, but I think going forward, we might be having multi-year budgets going forward after the next spending review.
I'll open it up to the floor now. Maybe the Deputy Chairperson might have a question.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Rachel. Very, very comprehensive. Really appreciate having that, and have it to hand for future. It will be brilliant. I just wanted to ask specifically on the Assembly Commission and whether it's unusual that compared to other jurisdictions that in laying its own estimate, it brings a motion for debate and it's not part of the wider debate on the main estimates.
I think other corporate bodies do lay their own estimates, and it's because of that independent nature. Although some of them are rolled up within the wider debate. So it's certainly not unique. I think each of the jurisdictions does do it slightly differently, and there's pros and cons to each way.
No, thanks very much. Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions from the floor?
No, not currently.
Nick?
Just very briefly, would you be able to give us an idea in terms of the approach of using a memorandum of understanding versus standing orders? What difference if we move to actually enshrining any of the processes for the Commission into standing orders? What difference would that actually create to the scrutiny that's applied?
I think your next briefing is with legal, and they would maybe be able to talk more about the legal aspects of it. I guess, you know, if you are going to contact other jurisdictions in terms of what works best in practice, you know, Wales has extensive standing orders, and the other ones have gone for these written agreements. So in practice, I'm not sure which is better, but from a legal standpoint, I'm sure legal will be able to advise.
Ciara, had you any questions?
No, I just thank Rachel. It's a pretty detailed report, and seeing the difference, I suppose, is just generally one thing, Rachel, and looking across all the jurisdictions and how they do that in the sense of, obviously they have legislated for it and it's quite detailed. We stand in orders. Is there any standout weaknesses in the process that we currently have in comparison to the other areas?
I think one of the benefits to sort of being at that early stage is that you've got that flexibility to make amendments, which you maybe wouldn't have once it becomes a standing order. So, you know, the Welsh standing orders are quite detailed, and they're time bound. The Scottish agreements are time bound as well, and I guess at the moment you have that flexibility, but you know, serious thought needs to go into which avenue would suit best.
Okay, Kieran?
Thank you.
Clerk, did you anything you wanted to contribute? Or?
No,
Yes?
I think that's fine, thank you.
That's fine. Rachel, again, thank you very much indeed for coming in this morning, and we really do appreciate the work that you put into that briefing. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, members, I want to seek agreement from the committee to two things: to write to the stakeholders to seek views on potential changes that would see the audit committee extend its role to codify the draft budgets for the NIAO, NIPSO and NIAC, and secondly, to commission legal advice on any changes required to standing orders to extend the powers of the committee to agreeing and align the estimates for the NIAC. Can I have agreement that we take those actions? Agreed? Okay, thank you very much. So I need to now seek agreement of the committee to move into closed session. Are you happy? No? Thank you.
Senate Chamber. Sound.